Today on Investigate TV Plus, a couple says their peaceful retirement is now a pipe dream after an oil company's well contaminated their land.
We get a call in March 2018, saying don't drink the water.
The legal loophole letting companies off the hook from cleaning up the mess.
Plus, she was branded a felon for decades, only to find it was all a mistake.
I felt criminally beat up. Like I say, I call it a judicial disability that they have given me.
How the error cost her far more than frustration.
Then trading a badge for a bagpipe. How first responders are saving lives and keeping a tradition alive.
I just love it. It's a passion of mine. It's a lifetime of learning.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus.
The oil and gas industry is one of the most profitable in the world, and critics say it's behind a crisis costing taxpayers billions of dollars. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. That crisis is with Orphan Wells. Those are wells oil and gas companies fail to plug, leading to pollution and costly cleanup.
Investigative reporter Kristen Crowley worked with our partners at ProPublica and Capital in Maine to look into this issue and what can be done to fix it.
And she reveals why for one couple the cost goes far beyond money.
For more than a century, this farm just 50 miles south of Oklahoma City has been home to the Ledgerwood family.
When you decided to retire here, what did you envision for your future?
Peace. It's a little bit of tranquility and no stress.
And what have you gotten?
Well, we certainly have not had peace, and we've had a lot of stress.
Stress, they say, that stems from this: an oil company's injection well on the Ledgerwood's land. These wells are pretty common in oil states like Oklahoma, so it's not unusual to see. But what you shouldn't see is this. 7 years ago, Stan captured this video of salty wastewater bubbling from the well. Lab testing shows high levels of chloride in the soil, about 12 times higher than the acceptable amount. But the contamination didn't stop in the ground.
We get a call in March 2018, saying don't drink the water. And then we don't have water to drink for a little over a year.
Stan says they bought clean water to drink, but had to use the contaminated water for everything else.
We had to use it for household needs, but it was caustic, I guess you would call it, enough that, it would rust stainless steel, and toddlers' hands would get very chapped.
We don't know what we bathed in for years, so it's just really sad and frustrating.
Frustrating not only because their property was contaminated, but also because the cleanup of their property was never finished. That's in part because this well doesn't have an owner anymore. The company, South Creek Petroleum, filed for bankruptcy in 2021. Company representatives did not respond to requests for comment. Without an owner, it's now known as an orphan well, one of likely millions across the country.
Why are orphaned wells a problem?
They are a problem because they contaminate groundwater resources, and orphan wells also contaminate the air, and they leak methane into the atmosphere.
Shannon Anderson is the organizing director and an attorney with the Powder River Basin Resource Council in Wyoming, and she's been tackling the issue of orphan wells for decades. She says companies are supposed to set aside money to plug and clean up wells. Those allotments are called bonds, and it's the law. There's just one problem.
There's just not enough money set aside. And so it's cheaper for companies to literally walk away from their wells and their obligations, leave that money on the table, and then leave the mess for taxpayers and communities to deal with.
Yes, taxpayers end up footing the bill. and the bill can be huge. Our partners at ProPublica and Capital in Maine did an analysis of the 15 states that produce nearly all the country's oil and gas. In Texas, the estimated cost to the state to clean up all the currently unplugged wells, should they become orphaned, is $37.9 billion. The money set aside? Only $565 million. That's less than 2%. California's cost could be about $19 billion, with $240 million set aside, also less than 2%. Kansas has less than $2 million in bonds for a potential cleanup cost of $967 million, a fraction of 1%. Their analysis found all of these states face a shortfall of at least hundreds of millions of dollars.
We have a huge liability in our state that we're trying to get better control of.
Oklahoma House Representative Brad Bull says he's trying to change that in his state with new legislation. Currently in Oklahoma, companies only need to guarantee $25,000, whether they have one well or 1,000. Bull says he wants to move to a tiered system that would look like this. The more you own, the more you pay. Companies owning 101 or more wells would set aside $150,000 in bonds.
A $150,000 bond isn't going to cover the $2 million, but it's a lot better than a $25,000 bond.
Or at least it would have been. 2 months after our interview, Bull's bill died in the Senate. Anderson says the change we need to see in these oil-producing states can't happen without lawmakers.
It's a huge loophole that's being exploited lawfully by companies across the country.
The American Petroleum Institute is the industry's major trade group. It declined an on-camera interview, but provided a statement saying, "We are continuing to work with policymakers to advance balanced regulations that enhance safety, sustainability, and environmental stewardship." But Anderson says that remains to be seen.
We need, folks around the country to start really caring about this issue and supporting regulators that are holding the industry accountable.
Accountability is exactly what the Ledgerwoods are waiting for.
A victim of crime, at least the state stands up for them. And here you're just on your own.
No one's standing up for you.
No.
According to data from the Oklahoma Tax Commission, the company that drilled on the Ledgerwoods farm produced about $4 million of oil and gas, adjusted for inflation. Meanwhile, as the oil company gained, the Ledgerwoods said they lost. Before the spill, their property had been appraised at around $1 million. After disclosing the water issues to potential buyers, they had offers coming in at $450,000.
South Creek denied all allegations in the lawsuit and blames the equipment company. That company also denied accusations. The federal government is trying to do something about this problem. As part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, it set aside $4.7 billion for states, tribes, and federal agencies to plug orphaned wells. Since then, states have plugged more than 7,700 orphaned wells. But the problem, Shannon Anderson says, is that's still taxpayer money. She says the issue will continue until laws are reformed to ensure oil and gas companies set aside more money up front to plug their wells. If you think you have an unplugged orphan well on your property, you should contact your state's Department of Natural Resources. Still ahead, how to manage your metabolism. We bust the medical myth that could keep some from reaching their weight loss goals.
Plus, a grandmother faced decades of discrimination after she was marked as a felon by mistake.
It's just been slapping me in the face for 37 years.
Why she's only just now free of the consequences. You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime online. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel at Investigate TV. You can catch stories and full episodes.
One bad decision could land anyone in a lot of trouble when it comes to breaking the law.
And if that crime is a felony, the consequences can last a lifetime. While laws vary by state, felons in the U.S. typically lose the right to vote, and they often face barriers to employment, housing, and loans.
People convicted of felonies can't even travel to some countries like Canada or Japan.
A great-grandmother was branded a felon for decades, and she says it ruined her life because it turns out she never was one.
Reporter Angie Racono explains how a simple mistake created a complicated fight for justice.
It takes Phyllis Henderson just 5 seconds to explain a lifetime of stigma.
It got entered into the system as a felony when it should have been entered as a misdemeanor.
She became branded a felon. The shadow followed her everywhere.
I felt criminally beat up. You know, like I say, I call it a judicial disability that they have given me. They've disabled me from renting in a decent neighborhood, getting into gainful employment. It's just been slapping me in the face for 37 years.
This all begins in 1988 when big hair was the rage. Bush beat Dukakis and unleaded gas was $1.08. Phyllis was younger and had a bit of a wild side. That's her on the right.
We're riding around, we're young, we're riding around, drinking, partying.
She spent the night at a stranger's house and woke up to an acquaintance stealing items, including a VCR.
They searching the apartment for other things. I grabbed the car keys and left.
In the end, Phyllis was charged with a felony, and she never snitched on who really stole the VCR. The charge eventually changed to a misdemeanor because the value of the stolen item was less than $150. But when Phyllis applied to jobs and apartments, it came back that she was a felon.
What did you think when they came back to you and said, you have a felony?
How? You know, and then it's just in there. I just accepted it. Mm-hmm.
So this is really just hung over your head.
It's hung over my head. I've been homeless one time.
Don't think she didn't push back. She tried. She even asked for a pardon from Governor Jay Nixon.
He rejected it.
Phyllis recently turned to UMKC's expungement clinic.
And when we looked at those documents, it wasn't a felony. It was a misdemeanor.
UMKC professor Ellen Sooney found all the old court records. It clearly shows the original charge, which was a felony, and then the new charge, which was a misdemeanor.
So the prosecutor changed it to a misdemeanor.
There's even a signed record from the judge. But somehow the misdemeanor conviction was entered incorrectly at the Missouri State Highway Patrol Criminal Records Repository. So if you run Phyllis Henderson's name, you see felony.
Wow. Have you ever seen anything like this?
This was the first case where I actually saw that big a mistake. Sure enough, it says felony.
How big of a difference is it in someone's life if it's a misdemeanor or a felony?
A felony almost always is a much bigger deal. I mean, there are lots of consequences that come automatically from a felony.
Phyllis knows the consequences. She's lived with them for more than 3 decades.
Misdemeanor, it's a black and white. Why is it who typed it in the system, felony? That's what I want to know. How did it get in the system, felony, and been there all these years?
Phyllis recently went to court where a judge granted her expungement, meaning the felony conviction, that was never really a felony, is now gone.
Today, a mistake like this would be easy to fact check and update. You could just grab your computer or your phone and check the court records. But Phyllis couldn't do that in the 80s and the years that followed because the records that she needed were only in paper files in the courthouse. In Kansas City, I'm Angie Racono.
Still ahead, keeping in tune with this band isn't easy.
We can't carry the music. Everything's got to be in your head, so I have like 100 tunes in my head.
How playing an Irish instrument became a timeless tradition among first responders.
Plus, many foods we consider healthy could be the reason some struggle to lose weight. Experts share their secret to success when it comes to getting your metabolism in check.
Our in-depth coverage continues. You can get connected to Investigate TV Plus on all social media platforms. When you think of carbohydrates, you may imagine foods like bread, pasta, and rice. But even some healthier choices might surprise you when it comes to carb content. First, we should mention a slice of bread contains 14 grams of carbs, and a serving of pasta contains 15. Now, Lee, here's some trivia for you. How many grams of carbs do you think are in one serving of low-fat yogurt?
You're going to put me on the spot here,
on the
aren't
spot,
you?
right here,
Thank you
yes.
very much. And I don't have these answers in advance because I'm obviously going to get them wrong right here. 12?
No.
No?
Much more.
Much more?
18 grams.
Oh.
How about one apple?
One apple, so I'm going to go higher than. I'm going to go like 18.
It's higher than
18
at 25 grams in an apple.
Did you know that before you were?
I didn't.
Okay, you researched this too. Okay, I feel just a little better by not knowing that. While carbohydrates are a staple of American diets, research shows people who want to lose weight may want to consider cutting carbs.
Reporter Viv Williams shows us why.
The calories in, calories out model has been around for a long time. It's called the energy balance model. Dr. William Yancey, an obesity expert from Duke University, says it may work for many people, but not for everybody.
There's a new model out there that's called the carbohydrate insulin model that a number of us who research in this area have proposed.
Duke endocrinologist Dr. William Yancey says this model of weight loss focuses on how a hormone, specifically insulin, responds to the type of foods you eat.
If you eat a higher carbohydrate, particularly processed carbohydrate, then that's going to raise your blood sugar and that's going to raise your insulin. And insulin is a hormone that causes people to gain weight. It's a hormone that tells our body to store fat, not burn fat.
High carbohydrate foods include white rice, bread, pasta, crackers, highly processed prepackaged foods, sugary drinks, and sweet treats like cakes and cookies. Yancey says reducing the amount of carbs you eat may make losing weight easier.
The typical American has about 200 to 300 grams of carbohydrate per day. So somebody who's having 300 grams of carbohydrate a day, that obviously is a lot of starch and sugars probably, and a lot of sodas. Those people can benefit by going down to 200.
Yancey says carbohydrates are not essential nutrients, so you don't need a whole lot of them.
Reducing carbohydrates lowers your blood sugar, lowers your insulin levels. You're able to start burning your fat. You have more energy. You're able to move more.
Yancey says weight loss is really hard, but the carbohydrate insulin method is a recipe that may make it a little easier for some people. With this Medical Mythbuster, I'm Viv Williams.
Still ahead, it's a tradition spanning nearly 2 centuries. Why first responders trade one uniform for another to play at funerals and parades across the country.
You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime streaming online. Get the app for Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. They're free to download. If you've experienced any first responder funeral or parade, you've probably heard the somber sound of bagpipes. It's a tradition that spans more than 170 years, beginning when most police and firefighters in New York City were Irish. Today, first responders of all backgrounds make up bands across the country.
Reporter Lauren Korn introduces us to one band bringing the tradition to South Carolina.
Irish Center, by the center, right, quick, march.
It's the soulful sound of the bagpipes, entwined with the beating of the drums, that gives these men and women one more reason to be proud to bleed red and blue.
It's a wonderful group of people. We're a service band, which means made up mostly of fire and police.
Firefighter Janine Shelley joined the Coastal Carolina Shields Pipes and Drums Band in November, playing pipes for the last 15 years.
I just love it. It's a passion of mine. It's a lifetime of learning. They say there's only 9 notes to it, but there's a million embellishments that go with it. So the minute you slack off, you kind of fall backwards. So you got to keep practicing and to make it work for sure.
Just ask Officer Danny Sullivan, the support services trainer for Myrtle Beach Police.
I've been with the band since 2015. I'm proud to say I'm their first student, so they got me from student to streets, and now I am a pipe corporal for the band.
Danny played in New York before joining the more than 20-person crew, making sure all the pipers are in tune. The band not only keeps their instruments in tune, but also their steps. Ready at a moment's notice to honor the fallen and their families, or perform at parades, celebrations, and graduations.
We're a fun band. We'd like to go out and just have a good time. We do like going out and playing the social events, but more importantly, we like to do the ceremonies and continue that tradition.
A tradition that retired Yonkers police officer Bob Brown brought to Myrtle Beach.
It's become such a tradition with the police department. I just thought it'd be something nice to bring down here.
Brown is the pipe major, decked out in the 4 stripes that shows he's the one in charge of picking the music.
It's not an easy hobby, but it's fulfilling, it's especially, like I said, with the, part of our heritage and all.
The Shields Pipes and Drums Band is nothing new, rather steeped in first responder history, including the kilt they wear, an ancient Brody hunting tartan.
Been going on since over 200 years, and big presence up, especially since I know from New York.
They say that the pipes came over with immigrants when they came to New York City from Ireland and Scotland. Very popular during times of like line of duty deaths, is when you would hear the pipes play.
Besides providing music, the service band also raises money for charities.
Fundraisers, toy drives, things like that.
And say they're always looking for their next member.
We'll teach people. We have, a couple of the old guys can't march anymore. They do the teaching.
You enjoy music, you enjoy the brotherhood, come out, join the band. It's just a good organization, and it's a good way to give back to your community.
Pipes down.
And that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Thanks for watching. On the next Investigate TV Plus, a massive construction fire took the lives of 2 workers.
The lack of urgency, I think, is just the most critical in this.
We uncover the safety failures that hampered rescue efforts and the proposed changes to fire code that followed our investigation.